Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you so much for dropping by. Wow. I've just had an interesting couple of hours. So for those of you who've been following this channel, well, for those of you who haven't been following this channel, I've made this commitment to just set aside all my other spiritual practices, beliefs, and just really focus on Buddhism and specifically Jodo Shinshu. And it's been really interesting, really wonderful, actually, really insightful. And then today I experienced quite the temptation. And, on this path, temptation is not the normal temptation, sex, drugs, rock and roll, getting angry, anxiety. Those are what we generally think of as temptations. On this path, that's not so much the case. The temptation on this path is to believe in yourself, to believe that you can improve yourself, specifically improve yourself in a lasting manner, very specifically, improve yourself in such a way that you'll have lasting happiness, which is an unconscious way of saying, believing that you can lead yourself to Buddhahood. So as I've been making these videos, and every time I log onto YouTube, there's all these possible videos that I can watch. And, I'm offered all these videos every time. And then a video came up as a possibility of something I've looked at in the past, a form of self-improvement. And I was just seized by it. I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to, look at this again and really make that change. And so on the surface, this sounds like a virtuous activity, but it really isn't. Now, that's not to say we can't do things that help us stay healthy or balanced, but on a deep level of like, I'm going to heal this part of me. I'm going to change this. I'm going to fix myself. I have to be very careful because this whole path is about relying on other power. And so the moment you start to think, and I'm speaking from my own experience, so I started to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I can make these changes. And my focus on Amitabha Buddha went right out the window. Right out the window. And I've been feeling a really strong connection to him for the last 6 or 7 days now. And it was just, so I finally realized what was going on. And it's really tricky because it sounds so virtuous, even from a non-Buddhist perspective, much less a Buddhist perspective, to like identify, imbalances or problems or places where you're not virtuous and strive to better yourself. And it's a trap. It's an absolute trap. And as someone who's been on the self-improvement wheel for, when it started, I think over 26 years ago, I can attest to that it's an absolute trap. And I live in Santa Cruz, California, which is like everyone's working on themselves, trying to heal, trying to grow. And on the surface, it sounds really good, really virtuous, really healthy. And what I've come to discover is it's mostly twisted and sick and really just a trick of the ego. And, that's not to say, I'm not saying don't take an anger management class, like if anger's like really impacting your life, or, like obviously take good care of our health. But those are really simple things, but if we take this grand thing of like, I'm going to become a new person, or I'm going to make this big change in my life, that's a really dangerous, for this path anyway, it's actually dangerous to this path. That will block other power, because that's picking up self-power. And so I'm really exploring the balance. For example, I felt really called to go to the gym and start working out again, and that feels really good, and it's fun. I take my Shin Buddhist literature, and in between reps, like I do my reps And then I just sit there and I read and I really reflect on the teaching. And then I do more reps, saying the Nimbutsu while I'm doing reps. And then I just reflect on the teaching. And it feels really right. It feels righteous. It feels good and healthy. But I don't have this feeling of like, oh, I'm going to fix my life this way. It's just like, this is healthy and this is good for me. So I'm doing it. So our intention is everything. Because and the primary intention is this: am I relying on Amitabha, or am I like relying on self power? This, we're open to receive grace, and this is saying no to Amitabha, relying on self. So watch out for temptations, especially spiritual temptations. They're the trickiest. Namo Amida Butsu. Thanks. Much love.